We are going to be looking at things that you might have around your house, maybe your parents' house, maybe even your grandparents' house, that are worth a good amount of money, enough that you should look for them. Brian and I see this quite a bit as we do get a lot of people bringing in their stuff to sell us. A lot of times they forget the key pieces that actually add a lot of value to what they're selling. And that's one thing about vintage audio, at least from the collector's side, a lot of us are completists. Having all those accessories really adds a lot of value to it. You'd be surprised how many times we'll ask people if they have something and they'll say, oh, those speaker stands, those are the ones I gave to Aunt Matilda and she uses them as a
flower plants on.
That's it right there. It really happens a lot. I think as soon as this video's over, you need to get out the flashlight, get up into the attic and start digging around. You might have something pretty valuable up there. A lot of times, the accessories are actually worth more than the piece of equipment.
This is a time to sweat the small stuff.
Sweat it.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of these pieces are small pieces.
Makes them easy to ship. You know, you can sell them on eBay. They're easy to photograph. These are 45 adapters. While there's a ton of them out there that aren't branded, a lot of people want the branded 45 adapter. That goes with their turntable, especially the Marantz. The Marantz ones are selling for 60 bucks. The Pioneers are getting around 50. These little 45 adapters, don't just throw these away. You know, you want to make sure you hang on to these if you've got them and keep them with the turntable. The other one are the stacking spindles. There's two dual 45 RPM stackers. And you know, you're talking a couple $100 for those. The Techniques stacker spindle, they regularly sell for 100. Make sure if you've got one of those, grab it, set it aside. Save a little bit of money if you don't have the turntable anymore. It'll help somebody complete their turntable and everybody wins. Another really big one are the rack handles. Usually the Sansui ones sell for around $100 for a pair. The Pioneer ones are way more rare. And then they also had a rack shelf unit. And those get all the way up to 600 bucks. 500 for the standalone rack handles or 600 for the shelf. For those of us out there that have the Sansui AU rack systems or the Pioneer Spec 1, that line of Pioneer stereo equipment, you want those rack handles, you want that rack. You got a set of those? Hit the casino.
Buy new gear.
You can buy a turntable for that.
Absolutely.
All the Pioneer from the early 70s, whether it's the X2X line, the 1500, the SX6000, 9000, they use those little speaker plugs that must have got thrown in every junk drawer across America in the 70s. They're getting 40, 50 bucks for an original set. You see a lot of people making kind of, I mean, I've seen some really shoddy ones.
Real bad ones.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the one that, it looked like the person used a Sawzall to shave down the AC cord plug. And that's usually what they use are AC cord plugs.
One horizontal, one vertical.
Yeah, they start out like that and somebody grabs a pair of pliers, twists it.
Starts to twist.
Shaves it down a little bit and sells it for 30 bucks on eBay. A lot of times when these stereos come in that have these plugs, it's the first thing I do is flip that thing around and see if the plugs are on it. And if I ask the person, a lot of times what I end up hearing is they're probably on the speaker wires at home.
Yep. Because they just unplug them from the back of the receiver and they leave them connected to the speakers. It doesn't do the receiver or the next person any good without those speaker terminals.
Yeah, you have to have them. Speaker stands, and it's the OG stands, the stands that were made for specific speakers. They're getting crazy prices. Bose, Bang & Olufsen, ADS, ARs, each one of those, just looking on eBay, you can see what the prices are starting to get up to because nobody wants a set of Bose 901s without the tulip stands. And with the popularity of ADS kind of taken off in the last few years, it does seem like a lot of people are really getting savvy to that brand. And I think the cat's out of the bag. Our custom stands are actually kind of built on the original ADS speaker stand. It's got the same look.
There's also the ADS stands that have the adjustable
Kangaroo
knobs.
stands.
Yeah, the kangaroo stands. Yeah.
The ones that come down and go forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those, you can't find them.
No,
You cannot find
and
them.
they're the coolest
And
stands
they're
I think
the best
ever
looking
made.
stands
Totally.
made, period.
Yeah.
I agree.
ADS speakers are just the shit.
Amazing.
Yep. Bang & Olufsen's the same way. They're specific in the way they mount to the speaker. If you've got a set of those Bang & Olufsen speakers, you want those stands. The WC22 Marantz cabinet, the Macintosh cabinets are getting really hard to find. There are several companies out there that are making aftermarket cabinets and they look great, but the originals, which most people want because they're putting it in their flagship piece, they're getting expensive. They have value, and if you have one, don't just discard it because you think it's a little rough around the edges. Somebody will restore it. Sliding a Marantz or a Macintosh into one of those cabinets, it takes it from here to here. If you've got an entry-level Marantz that needs a lot of service, the cabinet on it might actually be worth more
than the machine. I wonder if a lot of those were taken off for space too.
Could have
like
been,
if they were
sure.
removed and taken off to fit into a different type of counter or display stand or something. And,
Totally.
yeah.
And you also have to think too, you know, walnut was the wood in the 70s, and then late 80s, early 90s, everything was oak.
Turned to oak, yellow oak.
Yeah,
Yep.
golden oak. If the aesthetics committee, you know, wanted everything to be oak,
Doesn't match.
it doesn't match.
Got to get rid of that case.
Yeah, it's either the whole thing or get rid of the case. If they were smart, they just put the case in the attic and kept using the receiver. Another one you definitely want to watch out for, these are really important, are the badged head shells. Nobody wants a flagship Sansui turntable with an aftermarket head shell on it. You want the head shell that it came with. And a lot of times these got discarded, or some people don't realize you can change the cartridge. And what they do is they buy a head shell with a new cartridge already mounted on it because changing a cartridge intimidates them. And these get lost. Some of them are proprietary to the turntable, like the Thorens. Yeah, so these are really sought after. The acoustic research head shells are really sought after. They all really have value. You know, the Sansui, Pioneer, Yamaha, Sony. For somebody out there that has a turntable that doesn't have the original head shell, you'd probably be really surprised at what they're willing to pay to make that turntable complete and original. It's kind of like muscle cars at this point.
It is. Yep.
There are people that are making, let's say that.
Aftermarket.
Thank you. There are people that are making aftermarket AR head shells, which is great because a lot of times these are damaged. This one's damaged, so I'm glad people are making these because the original ones you can't find anymore.
That would be difficult to make aftermarket though.
They are remaking them.
Are they really?
Yep, the Thorens head shells. The nice thing about some of the aftermarket Thorens head shells is you can get them with top mounting. That is one of the problems with both the AR and the Thorens. They've got a nice clean look to them, but if you were to get an Ortofon, you can't mount it without, and I've seen it too. I've seen where people have taken drills and they've drilled down into these head shells so they can top mount them. Ortofon does make bottom mount version of their cartridge. Yeah, Brian just said this is where the money's at, and he's absolutely right. And you'd be surprised how many times people will bring in a turntable to sell. They'll say, oh, and there's also a few parts in there too. You can just have those. They go with the turntable, and you'll find brand new old stock Empires, new Pioneer cartridges. These Bang & Olufsen cartridges are no joke. These are getting to be incredibly rare and incredibly expensive. If you've got a new old stock Shure stylus or cartridge, you need to look that up because people are paying really big money for those. They liked their V15. They've used that cartridge for a long time, and that's all they want to use. Finding new old stock cartridges and stylus it's really difficult, and you could have a really good chunk of money sitting there. You know, the VC or the vinyl community on YouTube does a really good job of letting everybody know that Beatles Butcher records and these high dollar records are out there, but nobody really talks about reel to reel. And you should know that a lot of these pre-recorded reel to reels are worth a lot of money. If you get like an AC/DC or a Led Zeppelin reel to reel in really nice condition, you could be looking anywhere $200 to $500. They're getting crazy money for them. Again, it's a condition issue, just like a vinyl record. You don't want any mold on it. You don't want that tape dried out. You don't want tape that's been stored in a shed or in a dank basement for the last 20 years. A fan of the channel actually sent me this Blue Cheer reel to reel. I can't thank them enough. Love this album. I love my vinyl records too, but it can't touch a really well recorded reel to reel, in my opinion. The other thing to look out for are the metal reels. And what you need to know about the metal reels really is the tape is irrelevant. It doesn't matter if there's any tape on there. People want the metal reels as a take-up reel. 10 inches are worth even more than the 7s, but the 7s have a lot of value too, especially if they're branded, just like everything else. You want the Akai, you want the Pioneer, TIAC. If it's branded, it's better. Even if it's just a blank metal reel, it still has value. The prices they're getting for anything branded, Pioneer, Marantz, RCA, Zenith, is crazy. And these companies really put out a lot of advertising products. Zenith drinking glasses, RCA. Local repair shops would give out milk glass with Zenith on them, and Sansui. Even the RCA little nippers, you know, you got salt shakers. This would have been at a HiFi store in the 70s, just to let everybody know they sold quadraphonic Sansui equipment. You hardly ever see it, and when you do see it, it's going for big money. If you don't know the value of a piece like that, put it on eBay for bid. Don't set a price. Let the market dictate what it's worth. Trust me, it's gonna bring money. You don't need to try and figure out what somebody's top dollar is. Even the blown away posters.
Originals are going for
Crazy.
large amounts of money.
People are putting together listening rooms again, built around vintage stereo equipment, and they want stuff to display. If you've got anything in your house from a coffee cup to a wall display, you got value. Don't just put it in the garage sale and put $2 on it. And if you do, call me or Brian.
Or me.
You know, here's a disclaimer too, because I think a lot of people, if I don't mention tubes, would be down in the comments saying, why didn't you mention tubes? Here's the thing with tubes. Yes, there are valuable tubes out there. The problem is two things. One, you really got to know what you're doing, because there are a lot of TV tubes out there. There's a lot of tubes out there that were for ham radio. They were not for 2-channel stereo equipment, and they don't have any value. The other problem is a lot of times with new old stock tubes, technicians that used to go to people's houses and do repairs, they go into the living room, they go to check out grandpa's radio, they find a tube that's maybe a little bit iffy, it's still working, but past the mid-cycle of its life, and they want to get a commission. What do? They say, this one's gonna go out here pretty soon. I've got a brand new one I can put in. They put the brand new one in, they take the one that's still working and they put it in the case. And so a lot of the tubes you find out there that are new old stock aren't actually new old stock. Unless you know what you're doing, I would just avoid the tubes. And I know we definitely forgot a few things. It's just impossible to cover it all. So definitely down in the comments, let us know if we missed something. Let us know if you found something that you were shocked by what these pieces are getting now. Come in and see Brian on Saturday. He's a lot of fun. He's really good at helping you find the pieces of equipment that are going to work in your system really well. Head over to skylabsaudio.com. Appreciate you watching another video, and we'll see you next week.